Hey, welcome to the Modern Dad Council. I'm Chris Eischen. I have with me today Jay Forty of the Greatness Zone and Get Your Kids Ready for Life podcast, and many other things. And Eric Lehman of the Game Changer Movement. And we were going to talk about dad, stepdad kind of labels that we kind of give ourselves. But Eric has some really cool things happening in his game changer world. So I'm really going to pass the show over to him and let him share some of these amazing things that are happening and to kind of launch our conversation in that direction. So Eric, why don't you take it away?
Well, thank you. I mean, and some of these things are just, like not even hot off the press, but like hot off my heart. Like, I mean, like there's just been like mega downloads. And some of it is like, I learned recently that Marianne Williamson is moving from LA to New York City, and like there's just a lot of convergence, and like this what may actually happen next week as I journey to Europe on Thursday this week is I may attend this like mega convention or like mega summit. I think it's called like the World Economic Summit, and it takes place in Switzerland, which is a place that is like experimenting or like cutting kind of cutting edge in terms of looking at the idea of giving people a like a guaranteed income, like a guaranteed minimum income, rather than having people need to apply to social services or all these other things. So I feel like a global topic that I'd love to dive into with each other is what this summit is all about is talking about the fourth industrial revolution, and we're in it, and so a topic that just like showed up is like how does technology influence our fatherhood, and also like this, and I mean like this is kind of interesting where like the world of like kind of psychology and our state of being, like another question that I've had and I'm starting to like research is how does Moore's law, like this idea that computing speed doubles and like things are smaller, like exponentially smaller every other year, like, and computers are faster and they have all these abilities, why, like, how does that relate to our sense of happiness and nourishment and fulfillment, as human beings? Because like almost sometimes feels to me like there's this inverse relationship. Yep. As we can do more on our computers, we get busier and we have
do less with each other. Yeah.
Right. We have less connected experiences, and how do we bring that back? And how do we integrate technology with our kids and with our fatherhood experiences? And how do we meet our kids where they are, and then kind of go with that new shared energy? So I mean that's what's bubbling up, and I don't know if there's a specific question, but like I just how does technology, how do advancements in technology help us father better? I don't know.
Jacques Fresco is this inventor, and it's called the Venus Project. Are you familiar? He did a movie called The Future by Design. But basically,
you brought him up like a few months ago, and I did a deep dive, and was enamored by the dude. Yeah.
I mean, this guy's amazing. He's invented things that we use every day that you don't even think about. And he has no like formal education whatsoever. It's just he's so brilliant and he thinks so outside the box that he's genius. Yeah, Eric, if you're familiar, would you verify that?
Oh my God! I mean, like, and I feel like he just, he really doesn't feel the confines of this society's way of, looking at the world. So I don't, you
Right.
know, and I guess that's not that I want to like claim Jacques status, but like that's what's going on in my heart right now, because I'm just like, holy cow, like I just got this like mega understanding that it's not necessarily the inventors of the world. Like Jacques is great, but he's in a silo until people know what Jacques is, right?
Right. Right.
So my feeling is it's now time for the connectors and the integrators of the world to make sure that the Jacques and the Teslas of the world have their insights grow into application and integration and that's what I'm trying to say is like, how has the cell phone enhanced our ability to father? I think that's it's a really interesting tangible place to start. Is like, we now know where our kids are in a way that we didn't when we were growing up.
And is that better? Yeah.
Right. So do you want to say more about Jacques before we dive into some of these tangible?
Yeah, I'd love to, because I feel like the work of Steve Jobs and what he did with Apple and the ideas that created this, the phone from Steve Jobs' perspective was he didn't invent any of that technology. And that's what I don't think a lot of people quite grasp, is he didn't create anything. He just found really good ideas, and he had this vision of how life would be lived. And so it would just make sense, and that's why Apple is so kind of intuitive and easy to use for people, and that kids use it and everything else. And then what Jacques did is he created a world that didn't use a monetary system, that it was about what do we need as a species to survive and to live and to prosper, and to have that true American dream without the monetary aspect of it being even necessary, and that we would use technology to live off of, to live these amazing lives, and that came in to where nobody was doing physical work necessarily, that it was mainly all done with computers. And that's kind of where technology is taking us now, where you have factories that assemble our iPhones and everything, and there's not a single person that's involved necessarily in the manufacturing. Now you have people going in and repairing down equipment and things like that, but we're slowly evolving into this less industrial age and more of have the robots do the work for us. And as we kind of go in that direction, it opens up the possibility for this world that Jacques Fresco created to exist. So that's all I was gonna add to that. That he kind of, he was a futurist. He created the future. And then now it was up to these inventors, such as they're not inventors, but these, like you said, the
integrators and connectors.
Integrators and connectors. Yeah, there you go. To come and now say, okay, here's the technology. Here's how we can, create that future. And I think your gaming platform is another way that I'm excited to see, is an exchange of currency, and I wonder how Bitcoin could be incorporated into that, and how that would just totally change our entire structure as a society. You do a good deed for somebody, you gain points, which collects as Bitcoin or something along those lines, that now you can go use to buy things in life. I guess pretty exciting.
It's not that I want to put the skids on all of this, but how do we create context for quality? Just because we can accelerate and invent at that speed doesn't mean it always serves us. And Eric, this is why I'm glad you're asking about it, because you always look at it from the humanity side of it. And great that there's opportunity, But if you were to ask a parent about the value of a cell phone, I think they'd come up as it relates to being a good dad. I think they would identify as many problems with it as successes with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that just, to me, I think means, how do we have conversations about where technology goes, but hold tight onto some things that are important? So if the important part is relationship, then as it morphs, that we also have to then say relationship is still important. We were out to dinner the other night, and one of my issues is that I find that parents can be really critical of other parents. But I had a really hard time not being judgmental of this other couple whose kid came in with a set of headphones and a phone during the entire meal and never did anything other than listen to or watch whatever was on the phone, and the parents talked to each other, and the kid sat there even with his food with his headphones on. So I get that it's there, and I don't know whether this was considered a success because the kid was at least joining them. I don't know that. But as tools are out there, how are we abdicating? This is the big thing, I think. How do we not give up on our responsibility of integrating technology in a wise way in our families' lives? Mm-hmm. How do we say, I know the world is moving this fast, but if we let all of that happen, then here's what happens to our family, and I'm not going to let that happen. Mm-hmm. But here's what we'll do instead. And I'm not trying to be the guy that's holding on to the past, but I would like to have a voice in how new technology affects us, and that we still have the key to our house. And we let in what we let in, and we don't let in what we don't let in. And because it's out there, remember, every parent says this. If they jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge? To this, we talk to our kids. Well, if they all have cell phones, does that mean you have to have one? I don't know. How do we want to use it, and what will our role be? And how can we use technology in a big way to make us a really tight family, and be our best and step into our potential and let every person be who they are and see what's available in the world? I would love that. But there's an equal danger of it being so overwhelming that we lose ourselves in the process. And I don't know where that line is. But Eric, I think what you were bringing up before is, how do we as a family talk about where that line is, so that as things get created and technology, which is always morphing at breakneck speed, that we're not afraid of it, but we welcome it, but we subject it to some expectations that we have established for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, that's the whole, world of conscious disruption.
Yeah.
And also, and it just, I'm so glad you're on this, conversation, because it really brings the intentionality of the family meeting back into focus. And so maybe, and who knows what, if there was a family meeting in advance of that dinner, right? We don't know if the family's successful strategy was, Johnny's gonna come to the table under the conditions that he is allowed to listen to his own music and take in his own content and share this experience in his way,
Yep.
And that could be the family agreement.
Yep.
However, the idea is, was that intentional or was that unintentional? Was that, part of the plan, or was that just, the default, what's, So, I feel like technology is a blessing, a huge blessing. We can say, okay, now it's time for us to get our togetherness time logged in to our family meeting game, right? Okay, so we all get 30 points for participating in this dinner together. Now let's take our technology off the table and eat,
Yep.
and that could be part of the game, So we could be meeting our kids where they are, knowing that this counts, right? In a larger matrix of something. And they're living into, they're getting points, they're getting credit for, doing something that's intentional. So I'm just throwing this stuff out there, because I just feel like, when we go out into the world, here we are, quote unquote, modern dads, right? And I'm sure because we're pushing each other, on the fringe, we have this, like just a different framing. Like we've reframed a lot of what we see, you know. So, you know, for them it's like, oh, he sat through the whole dinner.
Yep.
And didn't erupt, you know,
Yep.
didn't whine, didn't complain. He was in his own world, and I was able to have a conversation with my wife. Yay, you know, mission accomplished. You know?
And it's funny. I was aware of that when I was watching, saying I am not one to judge another parent on what they do, because I don't know the rest of the circumstances. This might be a total hit of what's going on here, or it might be a total failure, but it's not my kid. Why do I pass judgment, or why do I see that? But it was the reminder that we will all have perspectives as technology comes in on how we use it and what we do with it. And one is, could we be less judgmental? Could we be less judgmental on how other parents are deciding to do this? Mm-hmm. And secondly, could we be really intentional in our own sense of what technology enters our house and what we do with it? Mm-hmm. And you know, maybe we hold the line that technology must always make you better, and it must always connect us better. And if either of those if either of them don't work, then it's not allowed here, or at least not in that form. And it might be frequency, type of contact, who you are when you play this game. Now all of a sudden you are not the supportive kid in this family that I need you to be, because you're learning some of this other stuff. So you know what? No, that's not okay. But it's going to take a change in parents about being more present to what's out there and not blindly going along with the fastest technology and looking hip and doing it yourself. I also see that a lot of parents that get upset with their kids for using their phones at the meal when, you know, they were interrupted from using their own phone in order to critique the kid who's using his phone at the meal. So, right. You know, how are we modeling what it is? And so it's a big challenge for us to be boldly present about all of this stuff, and that's going to catch a lot of us off guard.
I'm just gonna, like, because it's just kind of a comic relief moment, but so like I posted something yesterday on Facebook that just like gave me a belly laugh, which was like, it says, people say Cookie Monster sets bad example and contributes to childhood obesity, and like then Cookie Monster says people need to stop using cookie loving puppet as excuse for shitty parenting. So, like, I just feel like, you know, it's just, you know, like, who are we to judge? Yes, like, that's a great, you know, kind of question to ask. And the other question is, like, as modern dads, how do we hold the space for more intentional parenting?
Yeah.
You know, and, like, you know, not necessarily that we know how people need to parent, but I feel adding a layer of intentionality can't hurt, you know. So you know, so I mean, I just feel like this is a huge opportunity for us as modern dads, and you know, like, one of the things that's like manifesting out of this is actually like a family meeting game that's going to have, you know, a reward system within the family, within the household, and also, you know, as it pertains to the external world and technology.
You know, I think I just solved that whole thing for you with the idea of cryptocurrency. Like, that is such a freaking brilliant idea of something that exists in the digital world that can be used in a gaming format, platform, reward system, etc. for your kids. Are you familiar at all, Jay, with
with Bitcoin? Yeah.
That's a cryptocurrency, you know, being an online digital currency. Well, you can set things up to where, like, oh, if you have to log in to play your game, right? Well, as soon as you log in, that time that you're on there costs, you know, 0.00001 Bitcoin. And so as long as you're playing, it's racking up accumulated cost for you being on that game. So now all of a sudden, the kid playing his video game costs him currency, and maybe he only gets.
Yeah. How does he earn currency?
Right, and so then when, you know, maybe that kid at the dinner table or at the restaurant, right? Maybe that was his way of earning currency, right? Like, hey, you sat there, you didn't fight with us,
Yeah.
you didn't throw a fit.
Yeah.
You earned, point oh
Yeah.
so bitcoins, right?
So everybody learns a lot about bank accounts, I guess, that way, right? So what are the classic Stephen Covey? What are the emotional bank account components? What makes a deposit? What makes a withdrawal?
Right.
And maybe there's a lot of character building that can come from an activity like that. And gaming is a wonderful way of making a point. Kids get it, adults still use it, so there's this positive aspect to it that could reinforce character, or build character, reinforce family values, family participation. There's a whole lot that could go in there where the family creates the Eishen bank, and you have each kid gets Eishens. That's the currency. And to do a good deed for your brother gives you 3 Eishen. Or having a temper tantrum costs you 10 Eishen. And not only would we be great at math skills, and man, wouldn't everybody know how to balance their checkbook, but we would be aware of cause and effect. Maybe that currently we're not aware of. Our helicopter parents now have done a very good job of making no cause and effect impact. That everything that a kid does is always protected by a layer of parenting between you, the kid, and the outside world. So if they lose, they don't have to feel the sense of loss because parents have bought them a trophy. Or if they have some disappointment, a parent's there to make them feel good by taking them out to lunch. This constant never let you deal with life's failure stuff. Well, your withdrawals are an example of when you were failing. So if you're overdrawn, there's a whole lot of failing going on here. It seems like time for an intervention, or a coaching session, or a parenting session, or something. There's the huge possibility that could really positively affect parenting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I love, cryptocurrency is just that. Like, it could be micro or macro, and I feel like, I'm sure that I'm actually working with people who are creating the technology that makes this sing. I think what's important is to back it down and say, okay, now that we can figure out the currency, what if it boils down to a game of Monopoly where there's community chest and chance, right? What do those cards say? What are those, where do we as modern dads, come in to help hold the space and ask the questions for, extrinsic motivation, intrinsic motivation, all these different character building opportunities, and
I wonder.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I wonder if, as a parent, in this virtual game that you're creating, if there would be an opportunity for me to say, okay, I'm at the store right now with my kid, and I'm going to plug in to the game an opportunity for them to hold the door for somebody, right? And they didn't hold the door, or they did hold the door, and based on what they did in reality, gave them points within the game that I, as the parent, observed and was able to credit them through the game.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Totally.
And I'm just saying holding the door could be one of those situations of something that happened, or maybe they did a good deed, and as the parent, I witnessed that. Now, how do I log that in to the game to give them that reward?
Yeah, stay off your computer, except for now I'm tabulating your score, so I need to be on the computer.
Yeah, leave me alone. I'm trying to do something here.
I just wonder if, is this bribe behavior? I mean, so these are extrinsic rewards. This Bitcoin or this currency stuff is truly the bribe. If you do this, then you get this. And
well, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't necessarily have to be that you set them up, but it's in an observation moment as a parent,
right.
oh my gosh, look at what
But the reward is always a tangible thing that you get to spend. How is that? Is that part of this new industrial age?
Or is a hug a viable reward?
Yeah.
Or is 15 minutes playing catch with dad a viable reward?
Mm-hmm.
you know, and like, you know, what are our commitments? What are our inputs? You know, and I feel like, you know, if it's just a way to like revitalize the allowance giving, you know, like I'm not a huge fan. But if it's a way to say, okay, this family this quarter, right, you know, has 200 hours, has $1,200, and you know all these talents, right? So it's like, you know, maybe it's like a time, talent, and treasure allocation game, you know, where we're like, okay, like we are gonna, you know, this family wants to serve together, so we're gonna show up at a community kitchen and donate 20 hours collectively, you know, to something that we all believe in. So, what are our beliefs? What do we all believe in? And how do kids get a vote right now? Like, you know, so that they feel buy-in to the process. You know? And what things don't get, you know, external rewards, but you just feel darn good for having done them, or, you know, making a contribution to your family. You know, so
So thus in playing the game, you create your family vision.
right.
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, so I mean, like that's kind of like, you know, I'm thinking out loud, like, you know, I mean, the game of, you know, I don't know if you guys played the game of life, you know, where like, you know, you drive along in this car and there's very like pink and blue and very heterosexist ways of you know looking at the world, and like, you know, just real life great things happen and real life traumas happen, and you know, you get to the end and hopefully you have like your 2.3 kids and your car full of whatever and a paid off mortgage or something, you know. That may not be everybody's goal anymore. So, you know, I was actually thinking and joking, but not joking for real, is like, what is our code of arms? Like, instead of like, you know, families, you know, having, you know, this old kind of medieval coat of arms, you know, like, what is our code of arms, you know, and like what does it mean for us to like identify as this unit? And it doesn't necessarily need to be this like mommy, daddy, and 2.3 kids. It's just whatever group of people play this together. What is our identity and what are our agreements?
Police. Yeah.
So I'm just excited about, you know, integrating technology with things and like bringing things back to life, because like, you know, I mean, we talk about family meetings a whole bunch, and I've been integrating more family meetings into my fatherhood recently, and you know, I feel like if there was technology, or if there was like something that could reach them where they're at, where like they would get points for even participating in the family meeting, you know, like that's cool. Like, you know, some of the behavior modification, you know, I think I'm even exploring the perfectionist in me, like saying, oh, I don't want to be about extrinsic motivation ever, you know. But how do we go from where kids are to where we want them to be? You know, right. Like maybe there's a transition way of like, you know, weaning people from rewards so that like in the beginning there's a reward heavy environment, and then it shifts from extrinsic to intrinsic as the ball starts rolling. You know?
Yeah, and I can see that, you know, if we're talking about modern parenting, that just means an updated version of it. Then, you know, some of the things we used to do to help our kids develop character and find their way need technology, or could use technology to create that. And, you know, I can see almost a family game that sets up all of this realm of possibility in it as a way of saying, maybe your world never asked you to consider this, but now that we have the luxury of this collective genius of what's out there, here are, I don't know, 10 buckets of things for you to consider that the family you grew up in, maybe you only saw 3 of these. But here is how you can be a well-rounded, discover yourself, where the commitment is to help your kids grow up authentic. You know, who are you? How are you living your potential? And how do you discover some form of purpose? And based on that, these tools will get you there. we don't know what your answer will be. We never do. But we know that this could create a roadmap of things for you to start the journey. But without that, we wouldn't know. The same way if we were a parent that only parents from the way our parents parented, there'll be a lot of holes in the way we parent today because this world and that world are not the same. So how could a game, how could a process that thinks prospectively, into the future, ask us about things and encourage us to consider things that maybe have never been part of our reality? And that could be a huge benefit of technology. Consider what you never thought about before. Here's some structure to thinking about it. Now go do with it what you will. And I imagine maybe it's a Jumanji type game, where as the more you play it, the more it morphs into the game that is exactly right for your family. That, the higher levels you get in it are the places where you customize it more for what is it that this family defines as family or place or whatever,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and that
cool. Could be really big.
Yeah, and that's totally feasible with what's out there. So.
Right.
Oh yeah.
There's never been a time where technology has converged in this way before. And so instead, and I feel like this is where, again, we become dads who are placeholders, who are question askers, rather than this is how it's done, people. So we're like, okay, what works for your family?
Yep.
And there's space for that. There's room for that.
Yep.
And I mean, I personally witnessed my friends, taking 2 hours to get his kids off of video game systems, and he's totally fine with that. He feels like that's there's no judgment there. It's just that's what I witness, and so if he's fine with that, then great, But there are other family dynamics who are it takes me 2 hours a day to get my kid off of technology and sleeping, And of course, ideally, we'd want our kids to feel a sensation of tiredness and put themselves to sleep, right? But between taking 2 hours to get them to bed, and taking and having that intrinsic motivation, how do we, as the Modern Dad Council, help that along, and we can't just say it needs to be intrinsic or it sucks, that's holding space for something that's not yet realistic,
Right.
So I just feel like it's time to make room for kind of micro dynamics within a macro picture, in a whole new way. So Chris, what else were you saying technology-wise, or I don't know, what do you guys have family meetings?
No.
No. After all this badgering from me, still no family meetings?
I don't know. I try to have one-on-one with my kids instead over the family meeting, and so it's just because I'm not in a typical family dynamic here. I have a girlfriend, and then I have my kids, and I have my kids part-time. And so I try to have one-on-one conversations with my son, specifically about things that are going on in his life or in my life, and same with my daughter. So I think the information's still being transferred, but it's just done in a different dynamic than a family meeting specifically.
Yeah, there's no requirement but that you intentionally choose when everybody needs to hear the same news or have input all together, versus, and a family meeting doesn't ever replace the one-on-ones you should have with your kids. But
Right.
there are times when, say it once so everybody knows it, and come to the place where everything is true and everybody knows that it just creates, I think, ease in the family.
That does bring up a good point, because I did just recently, my career, my job has kind of shifted. So there's going to be a change in the family, the scheduling in which I have the kids and things like that. So there was a I did hold more of a formal meeting about that, but it was still pretty casual. It's like, hey guys, got some news. But I think that's kind of the important thing here is that it doesn't need to look like anything.
Nope. You choose it. You
Right.
define it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, my son's 15 and my daughter's 6, so there's definitely like a mental like gap there of what my son can comprehend and what she can comprehend, and so that's kind of why I haven't had more of a general family meeting. Now, as my daughter gets older and can understand things on a deeper level, then that will probably be more of a normal thing. But I'll explain it to my son kind of in a more realistic explanation. You know, like this is literally what's happening, and then to her, just kind of a vague overview of what's going on.
Yeah.
You know? So, and it works. You know, I don't know, but go on. I feel like I'm taking away from the conversation.
I guess the question is like, you know, what would inspire, like, if there was a game that allowed you to once a year, with then like a light version of it to like, you know, once a month come together and say like, where are we on these, you know, parameters that we established in this, you know, I mean, I remember almost a year ago today, like I think I was sharing on the Modern Dad Council, like what a joy it was to play Monopoly twice with my kids, you know, a Friday and a Saturday. And then I realized that was 10 total hours of my life, you know, like it was a commitment to play Monopoly. And so, yeah, I saw my youngest daughter as like the most generous, you know, person at the table. Like she would never let any of her family members go bankrupt other than her older brother, you know, and it showed so much about like who she really was and like how she positioned herself within the family. Like she wouldn't let her older sister, you know, go bankrupt and leave the game if she could just, you know, excuse or forgive her rent when landing on Boardwalk or Park Place. There's my Long Island every once in a while. So anyway, I mean, like, but, you know, would I have spent those same 10 hours playing a family meeting game, you know, and would my kids have spent those same 10 hours, and then how cool would it be if, like, there was a documented, you know, vision afterwards, you know what I mean? Like, that would be awesome. So those are the things that just have me, you know, like excited about the outputs of a real world, real time game that allows for, you know, like tweaking, you know, so we can play this game, take 5 hours, sit down and do it, and then like, you know, tweak it once a month. Like, where are we on this, you know? So I know you need to go, Jay, in like 3 minutes. So is there like anything like?
I think, you know, like you said, I think modern is the key word here. You know, how can we be open to rethinking what it is that a dad does in today's world, and with his family, and how can we be open to allowing all of the things that are going on around us to be considered in what it is that we would do and how we would do it. And that, to me, has both sides. How do I not just out of habit say no, but how do I not out of habit always say yes? Just because there's new technology doesn't mean everybody should have it. But just because there's new technology doesn't mean we lock the door and keep it out. You know, how do we show up differently to understand what's there, and then say, here's where we go and here's what we do, or here's what I want to try. And that, to me, is the biggest change, and that's the thing that requires us to be far more present. And I think as present parents, we could do that. As present, and to me, I like modern and present to be kind of aligned with each other. That I think for a lot of our parenting, we're not very present. But a modern parent needs to pay attention to today's world and its signals and its loud voices more. So we can say, of what you hear, here's what we'll do and here's what we're not going to do. And we're going to get pushback on both. You know, I don't want to try that, though we're trying it. Or everybody else has this, how come we don't? Yeah, we're going to hear that.
Mhm.
But it's up to us to know, do our research, do our due diligence, and say what comes into my house. The line, it's funny, it's a line that just made me think of it. The line I use when teaching workplaces about how to hire is that managers should be the sentry at the door to keep the junk out. There's a whole lot of junk in the workplace. Why would you let that into your workplace? Well, there's a whole lot of junk out there in technology. Why would you let that into your house?
Mm.
You have to know what's junk and what's not junk. And that means you have to do some work and figure it out yourself, which is a really good thing because it makes you current. And in that, then you can start to say, well, part of my job is to know what's going on in my kids' world. And a big part of that is technology. You can't say, because I'm older, I don't get it. You have to say, because I'm older, it may take me more work to understand it.
Mhm.
But it still is what the kids are experiencing, and I need to know of what's out there to know what's for them and what's not for them, the same way we would about anything.
Mhm.
And so I think the modern part is, hey, catch up, dads, and don't put your head in the sand about this stuff. Go meet the world where it is,
Mhm.
understand it, and then say, of what's here, what's for you.
Mhm.
Okay, guys, I got to go.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and I
Awesome.
hope your shoulder feels better. We
Yeah.
missed it so much.
It's sorry, it's getting there. I got 3 more weeks of this. Funny, you can't see it now, but my wrist and my elbow is locked in place, no moving. So
Gotcha.
yeah, it's 3 weeks, 3 more weeks of this, and then the torture device comes off. So,
Good.
alrighty, guys.
And then
Thanks.
you'll be pitching again, right?
Oh yeah, right. That's my problem. Those of us who are academics should stay out of sports. Bye, guys.
Bye, Jay. Thank you so much. You know,
Go ahead.
no, this whole idea of the family meeting and then like how to take it into like a game, and then the idea of like cryptocurrency being able to be like I guess a reward system, but I don't know. It's just really neat to think about that whole process. It gets me kind of excited. Like,
Oh yeah,
ooh,
and I
this could
mean,
be-
and I think that's the other opportunity. Is like, do we meet our kids where they are? And like, I mean, and I know that like I used to roll my eyes at anything that was extrinsic, and I'm like, oh wow, like what when I rolled my eyes, what did that do for me? Like now I'm not at all money motivated, like and so like I don't look for external validation on anything, and so like now I'm sitting in my own world, like okay, I don't care, if anyone values what I do with money. I don't need external approval. Yay, I'm happy in my own silo. And, yay. And then what? Like, what does that mean in terms of like my intentions as a father? And I feel like another word that we can add to present and modern is intentional,
Mhm.
So like, cryptocurrency doesn't necessarily mean money.
Right.
We can cash in our cryptocurrency for a hug, and those things are necessary for us to thrive. Like, I mean, like we need as human beings a certain amount of heart to heart time. Like literally feeling somebody else's heart next to our chest is like a requirement for the photosynthesis of human existence, and like I think that's, I don't know if you've seen this movie called The End of the Tour. There was just this one line, like, kind of dialogue that just like hit my heart. And it was basically like 2 men talking about, kind of virtual, sexual experiences. And basically this one guy said, like if we keep on doing this kind of stuff, we're going to die. Like if we keep on sharing loving experiences with images rather than people who can't love us back, like we're literally going to die. Like, the essence of being human is going to be erased from our DNA, and like there's something there. So yes, cryptocurrency is going to be the lubrication that allows things to flow. It doesn't mean that it's all about money. It's like, hugs are currency, like 15 minutes of throwing a football around is currency. And like, all these things, if we're intentional about them. You know, if my son knows that he can bring a card to me that he won or earned during a game, and basically it's, instead of like the get out of jail free card, it's like 15 minutes of one-on-one time, whatever I'm doing, you know, like, you know, he can call that, and he knows he has that ability, you know, like that's cryptocurrency, you know, that's, you know, and it doesn't need to be money, you know. So I mean, like, time is one of the biggest gifts that we could ever give someone. And like, you know, I mean, I think that's the other opportunity, because, you know, just bringing it full circle to this, you know, this summit that I may go to in Switzerland, which is boggling my mind, is that, like, you know, there's this global fear of joblessness, because technology, not only is it going to start doing blue collar jobs, whatever that means, but it's also going to start doing white collar jobs. And like that's going to create a whole rash of people who are not employed, you know,
Right.
To not employed doing what they were trained to do, you know. So
which is where that led to the whole idea of the Jacques Fresco, right? Like, well, that scares a lot of people. Like, oh my gosh, there's unemployment rates are going to be astronomical. Well, yeah, but now we have the technology and the reason, the motivation to create a society like this. What's the motivation? Well, we're unemployed. We're unemployable at this point, right? We've created things to do all that work for us, which was kind of the point, right? To make life easier so that we could do what? Well, so we can focus on outward.
Right.
And start focusing on one another, and like, what are the things that really make this world worth living?
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's the thing, is like, you know, like a mega observation hit my heart and mind like a week or so ago, is just like, content, if you want to know almost anything other than like cutting edge, you know, new science, new whatever, you can know those answers on Google right now. Like, you can get to an answer. So what are you going to spend money on? Like, you're not going to buy somebody else's content. Like, for free, you can find any answer you'd ever want on Google, other than like, you know, cutting edge laboratory stuff. And even then, you could probably get a webcam into the cutting edge laboratory for free.
Right.
That being said, you know, what are people still going to pay for? Connection and community. Like, that's really what landed, is like, you know, if you're going to build a new business plan, don't build it about old knowledge. Build it about what you cannot put in a box, which is connection and community. And like, that's, you know, that's what we're doing. Like, that's what even like a family meeting game is building, like connection and community. Like, and that is like a mega opportunity. And so like, that's sort of the new market. So you know, I feel like, you know, I'm caffeinated and pumped, and like, if I get to go to this thing, like, I'm just like, all the people who, you know, in a way are part of the old and new world of business, of industry, are going to be represented at this thing in Switzerland. And so like, it's just, it boggles my heart and mind that like, you know, we're going to be able to connect in that way, you know, and like interact with that level of thinking, you know. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, keep us updated on how that goes, and, you know, like, any way that we can support. I know the big thing lately, like, was you did the thunderclap to kind of bring awareness to what you're doing. So keep us updated on another way we can, you know, really blast that message out there for what you're doing in the gaming platform, you know, whether it be getting input from other people or, you know, volunteers for the writing of some of the code or what have you, right?
Yeah.
So
well, I think that's a lot of it is like, I feel like, just even with the Monopoly, vision, like, what does community chest, like, what's the new community chest? What's the new chance cards, like if you were to hold a family meeting, what questions would you ask? So I mean, like, these are the kinds of like, different, like, I don't want to just be the one who, like, I want this to be a community developed game, so like, bless you. That's
Sorry.
what I'm doing. Sure.
That snuck up on me.
They often do. So but I just feel like, and like, it's time to start polling kids and say, like, would you play a game? Would you sit down with your family, like, and play a 2-hour family meeting game? And what would it need to have, for you to play it? And so, like, what you just said, like, with the cryptocurrency, like, of course, in order to sit down in the new world, to a game like this, it's going to take an incentive, and so yeah, I mean, like, and I'm excited because I'm working with like technology developers who, like, have their fingertips on things that are sort of, like, Bitcoin, so we can sort of have our own stream of a Bitcoin-like blockchain of, flow.
Right. Absolutely.
So, and time is one of the untapped treasures, like, units of time rather than money. So, like, if that can be tracked, and like, I would well up with tears if my, kid came up with me and presented me with my, like, with a get out of jail free card, and said, it's time for us to have one-on-one time, and I crave that right now,
That's awesome.
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
like, that in the redesigning of Monopoly, like, basically Monopoly is a family meeting game, it just doesn't have any, like, outputs, so what if okay, like this is just like fun brainstorm, like, what if Monopoly was actually played with a real budget?
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah, like, you can only spend so much.
Right. So, like, how do we spend, save, and give? What are we saving for? What are we spending for? And what do we believe in enough as a family to give towards? So yeah. So that's awesome.
So if anybody has any ideas, email Eric.
Yeah, Eric at dream-catalyst.org. Yeah.
There you go. Yep.
We're gonna start blowing out the Game Changer movement domains, so, like, they're gonna all have something fun to point at, so it's definitely, I can't believe 12 days have already passed in this new year, but it's moving fast. So
that's awesome.
Thank you, Eric, for allowing this to, like, morph into,
Yeah, absolutely, brother. That's what this is all about. So thank you for coming on and sharing, like, what's coming up and what we can look forward to, and what we can actually, step up and be a part of by, adding that feedback, right? So with that, this was the Modern Dad Council. Join us next week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.